Hello everybody, this is Dr. Nathan Jeffrey coming to you from Perceptive Health. We are a naturopathic clinic in Campbell River focusing on digestion and brain health. So what I wanted to do today in this video is quickly give you an overview of what we call a SIBO breath test and give you an overview of what the results look like and how to interpret those results. Now, SIBO breath test is something that we do in practice to establish if someone has what we call bacterial overgrowth. So bacterial overgrowth is something that occurs when normal or bad bacteria find their way up into the small intestine and proliferate at very high levels, causing lots of symptoms such as bloating, gas, especially upper bloating gas above the stomach area, and as well as things like heartburn, indigestion, and just overall feeling poor and fatigued. Now, this is an extremely common finding, and we're starting to find that a large percentage of people with irritable bowel syndrome may have a bacterial overgrowth. So it's definitely something we like to rule out when we're dealing with bacterial IBS. And IBS, irritable bowel syndrome, is extremely common, and often conventionally we just kind of say go on certain dietary restrictions and kind of learn to manage it. But if it is a bacterial overgrowth, we can address the bacteria and learn how to get them out of the small intestine and back into the colon where they need to be abundant. So this is the test that I use, and this is just a standard test from the lab that I use, and it's showing the data analysis. And just kind of showing. So this breath test takes approximately 2 hours to do. And what I'll do is I'll just show you the video. There is a video like on the website. And so right here, there's a nice video. And when people take this test, they're going to be able to watch this video, and it's going to break it down to really easy steps. It is a 2-hour test, and it does seem a little overwhelming, but if you follow the video step for step, we don't ever often have any problems. So going back to the report here, we can see that we're testing methane and hydrogen. This is methane, this is hydrogen gas, and over a period of time. And we're also going to add up the methane and hydrogen together. And then they're also going to check for CO2. And CO2 is a measure of the integrity of the sample. So we know if a sample is incorrectly taken. So you may be asking at this point, why are you doing a breath test for something like a bacterial overgrowth in the gut? Well, that's because our breath is a way we get rid of a lot of gases that have made their way into the system. So it's kind of interesting to think that when we have gas, some of it will come out as burping, and some of it will come out as gas, and other portion will be absorbed into our blood, and we'll have to breathe that out of our blood because that's how we get rid of all our gases in our body that are dissolved in our blood. So it's kind of really interesting. So our breath and the amount of hydrogen and methane in there is reflective on how much fermentation we have in the small intestine. And it is a really great test, and it seems to be very sensitive to bringing out a SIBO diagnosis, or a small intestinal bacterial overgrowth diagnosis. And so this is the template that is available from our lab's website, and it is just showing some pre-populated data here so you can kind of see what we're looking at. So over time, these are the numbers, and as you can see, this one right here, which is the hydrogen, over a period of time, these are the different samples taken, and this is the degree of methane or hydrogen, and you can see methane went up quite substantially within this two-hour time frame, and hydrogen did not go up. So that brings us down to our results. Now, in the regular population, we're all going to have hydrogen in our breath. from our gut microbiome and from fermentation. But it shouldn't go above 20 parts per million in the first 120 minutes of testing, so 2 hours of testing. So in some people, if they go over 20, they start having symptoms of IBS. This in particular sample was showing at 120, so this is how out of range it can be. But interestingly, I don't find the symptoms change based on the severity of this value. So I find that even if it's like 25, I find that symptoms are very similar to someone that might be 120. But this is a pretty extensive bacterial overgrowth. Then you'll see methane, and this methane, the cutoff for that in the average population without IBS, and they've done the research there. There's lots of people doing research online that you can follow up with and review. They are showing 12 parts per million. So this person was 9, so the cutoff is low. If someone's having constipation, then we're going to be more sensitive. So the data tells us that we can be a little bit more sensitive because some people are really sensitive who are prone to constipation are really sensitive to high levels of methane. So the cutoff point of someone at this point is 3 parts per million in the first 120 minutes. So methane is generally pretty darn low. And in this sample, it was high. And so we also can combine the two. And there's also value of understanding it when we combine the two to get the total amount of fermentation in the breath. So this would be a positive test, and it would indicate that a bacterial overgrowth is present. And after this, we work with our clients to develop a protocol to kill off the bacteria using herbal remedies and natural medicines. So that is an overview of the small intestinal bacterial overgrowth, and it is a very complex functional health problem, meaning that it's not something that is clearly present and leads to a lot of unusual symptoms, like irritable bowel syndrome is something that it can contribute to, and it's a really innovative way to test for that in the breath. So this is our test for that. After we get a positive test, again, we go on a series of protocols. And overall, I would say it is a long-term kind of thing that we do to support clients, because it does take about a good month of working on reducing the bacteria. And for some people, it may be up to a couple of months working on balancing the methane and hydrogen in the system. We follow that up with getting to the underlying causes, because we don't want a remission, and bacterial overgrowth commonly can remiss and flare up once in a while. And that may be because someone has, due to the underlying causes. So generally, we can figure out underlying causes, or I like to say contributing factors, because there's generally never one underlying cause. It's generally multiple factors. And they can be a lot of different things. So the main ones that I think about are food poisoning. That's very common. But also it can be something more subtle, like a low stomach acid, or an insufficiency with the pancreas or the gallbladder. It could also be people who have experienced chronic stress or trauma, because the gut is intricately linked and controlled through the vagus nerve and the parasympathetic. So when you are constantly going into fight or flight or stress response, then we downregulate our gut system, and we may get IBS-like symptoms, and that may lead to our digestive system not moving in a forward direction, and may lead to it being a susceptibility to a bacterial overgrowth. So chronic stress can be a bacterial overgrowth. And once we get to the underlying causes, we can then get an effective management plan going to help support you along this journey of getting this down and getting your digestive system all sorted out. So that is our the bacterial overgrowth testing. It's an interesting test, and I hope you enjoyed the video, and don't hesitate to reach out if you have any questions.